Hi everyone, Scott Lewis here for Wirefly, here today to bring you a cell phone Schmackdown for the HTC EVO 4G LTE for Sprint and the Samsung Galaxy S3 for Verizon. The EVO 4G LTE and the Galaxy S3 are very comparable phones with a lot of the same specifications. I look forward to seeing how they compete in today's Schmackdown. So let's dig in. Round 1 is going to be tech specs. The EVO 4G LTE has a 4.7-inch Super LCD 2 display with resolution of 720 by 1280 and a pixel density of 312 pixels per inch, where the Galaxy S3 has a 4.8-inch Super AMOLED display with the same resolution of 720 by 1280, but because of the slightly larger display in the same resolution has a slightly smaller pixel per inch. It's 306 pixels per inch. I would give both the EVO and the Galaxy S3 an A+ for the screen. In the size, the color, the clarity, everything about them is fantastic, so I can't find fault with either one of these phones on the display. The next category in tech specs would be the RAM. The RAM on the EVO is 1 GB, where the Galaxy S3 has 2 GB of RAM. We'll see in the later rounds if the 2 GB of RAM that the Galaxy S3 has is a big difference from the 1 GB that the EVO has. The last piece in the tech spec round would be the processors. The EVO and the Galaxy S3 both have dual-core Snapdragon S4 processors inside, so the winner of our tech spec round would be the Galaxy S3 because both displays are very good. You could even give the Galaxy S3 a slight advantage on that because of the 4.8 versus the 4.7-inch screen. Plus, having 2 GB of RAM on the Galaxy S3 over the 1 GB on the EVO 4G LTE is also an advantage for the Galaxy S3. So the winner of the tech spec round is the Samsung Galaxy S3. Round 2 is going to be all about the design of the EVO and the Galaxy S3. There's a lot of things that go into the design of these great phones. There's a lot of work and a lot of effort, and some of the specs dictate how the phones look and feel in your hand. So even though there's some specs that we're going to cover in this round, they do influence the design of the phones. The first one we'll talk about is the battery. Now the EVO 4G LTE has a 2000 mAh battery. Now it is an integrated battery, so you cannot take the battery door off the back. So to replace the battery in the EVO 4G LTE, you have to have it professionally done to make sure that you don't void any warranties. Where the Galaxy S3 has a removable back cover that houses a 2100 mAh battery. So a little bit higher milliamp hours in the Galaxy S3, but only 100 milliamp hour difference, not very noticeable in my use of the phones. Now I will say that the replaceable part on the Galaxy S3 definitely outweighs the integrated part of the HTC EVO 4G LTE. Now part of the reason that you integrate a battery in the EVO is that you can cut down the size of the phone when you're designing it. And that normally is an advantage for the EVO. It is 0.35 inches thick, but the Galaxy S3 with the replaceable battery is only 0.34 inches thick. So the Galaxy S3, even though it has a replaceable battery and is not integrated like the EVO 4G LTE, it is smaller. So really can't tell the difference, though. It is only 0.1 inches. Another specification that dictated the styling of the phone and design of the phone is the onboard storage. The EVO 4G LTE comes in 16 gigabytes, and you can add up to a 32 gigabyte micro SD card up in the top. The Galaxy S3 comes in 2 different size versions. You can get a 16 or 32 gigabyte onboard storage of the Galaxy S3, and you can add up to a 64 gigabyte memory card inside. So overall, the total storage capacity would be 48 gigabytes for the EVO 4G LTE versus 96 gigabytes for the Galaxy S3. So not only does the Galaxy S3 have a micro SD card that you can put in that's higher in storage, which is the 64 gigabyte card, but it does give you an option so that you can go 16 or 32 right off the bat. The EVO 4G LTE and the Galaxy S3 both have NFC technology built in. This allows you to make purchases at stores or vending machines with one tap of the phone at the point of sale. So far, round 2 has been leaning heavily towards the Galaxy S3, but the EVO 4G LTE has a trick up its sleeve. The kickstand is back for this version of the 4G LTE. It's more centrally located, so it will let the phone stand in landscape or in portrait mode, and is a very nice addition to this EVO 4G LTE. But even with the kickstand that the EVO has, the Galaxy S3 has the removable battery. It has more storage capacity internally right off the bat, in addition to being able to use a higher gigabyte SD card for max storage of 96 gigabytes versus only 48 gigabytes in the EVO. So round 2 design does go to the Galaxy S3. So the EVO needs a strong showing here in round 3, which is going to be camera multimedia if it hopes to beat the Galaxy S3 here in our Schmackdown today. The EVO 4G LTE and the Galaxy S3 both have 8 megapixel rear-facing cameras that are here on the back with LED flashes. Now the big difference between the two phones, or a difference between the two, is that the Galaxy S3 has a 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera versus the 1.3 that you get with the EVO 4G LTE. In using both of the cameras on the EVO and the Galaxy S3, I will say that I like the camera quality on the Galaxy S3 a little bit better, and I like some of the features that are on the Galaxy S3's camera. They seem to work better and are a little bit more accessible than the ones on the EVO 4G. Both the EVO and the Galaxy S3 have Wi-Fi hotspot capability. What that means is that you connect through your regular cell phone provider, so Sprint or Verizon, and the phone creates a Wi-Fi hotspot that you can connect tablets or laptop computers or any Wi-Fi device through the phone and actually use the data right from there, as opposed to having to have a connection directly through the other device. The Galaxy S3 has another advantage. It has a feature called Wi-Fi Direct. Wi-Fi Direct lets you connect the Galaxy S3 to other Wi-Fi Direct capable devices without having to have an access point in between. So they connect directly to the device, from device to device, without having an access point. So to recap round 3, I do like the camera, even though it's the same 8 megapixels. I like the camera function and usability in the Galaxy S3. It does have a stronger 1.9 megapixel front-facing camera versus the 1.3 on the EVO. And it does have the Wi-Fi Direct capability. So the Galaxy S3 is taking round 3 as well. So far it has won all 3 rounds. Let's see how the EVO 4G LTE competes in the benchmark battles here. Round 4 is going to be all about the benchmark scores that we're going to get. We're going to run an AnTuTu Benchmark and a Quadrant Standard Benchmark. We have them both here on the home screens. Let's go ahead and dig into the AnTuTu Benchmark first and get a score. I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off now and pick it up right before the end of the AnTuTu Benchmark. And it looks like we're almost done here on the Galaxy S3 and the EVO 4G LTE. Just a reminder that just because a phone finishes first doesn't mean the score is necessarily going to be higher, as we can see right here. So the Galaxy S3 has a score of 6,771, where the total score for the EVO is 7,041. So even though the EVO started or finished last, the score is higher. Now one thing to keep in mind, the Quadrant Standard Benchmark and the AnTuTu Benchmark are designed to test the function of the phone and the hardware in the phone, not the network connection. So because the EVO is connected to Wi-Fi here and the Galaxy S3 is not, it has absolutely nothing to do with the overall scores of the phones on the Quadrant Standard Benchmark or the AnTuTu Benchmark. So in the AnTuTu Benchmark, the EVO has a slightly higher score than the Galaxy S3. Let's go ahead and take a look and see how they fare in the Quadrant Standard Benchmark. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the camera off once again and pick it up at the very end of the benchmark. And we're wrapping up the Quadrant Standard Benchmark here with the helix on both of the phones. And let's go ahead and get our results for both of the EVO and the Galaxy S3. We can see our EVO has a score of 5,097, where our Galaxy S3 has a score of 5,007. Now we can see both phones are above the HTC One X, the Transformer Prime, the Motorola Atrix. Both the 4G LTE and the Galaxy S3 are very strong, powerful superphones, and it really goes back to the stuff that's inside the processor, the RAM, and the build quality of both of these phones. The EVO won both the Quadrant Standard Benchmark and the AnTuTu Benchmark, so therefore it wins round 4. A little surprising, but the test scores are the test scores. So the overall win goes to the Samsung Galaxy S3 for Verizon. The Galaxy S3 won the tech spec round, the design round, and the camera multimedia, but the EVO 4G LTE did win the benchmark. These are both great phones, and I do highly recommend either one of them. The EVO 4G LTE is only for Sprint, where the Galaxy S3 is available for Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, and even AT&T. If you're looking for a great deal on the EVO or the Galaxy S3, I highly recommend checking out Wirefly.com. We have great prices on these and all the other smartphones that are available, and we'd love to earn your business with our great customer service. My name's Scott Lewis for Wirefly. Thanks for watching.